Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Today on the Core Women Podcast, I'm excited to welcome Becca Powers, who is a powerhouse Fortune 500 high-tech sales executive, keynote speaker, and CEO of Powers Peak Potential. With an impressive career working with industry giants like Cisco, Dell, Royal Caribbean International, and Office Depot, Becca has led teams that generated over $500 million in annual revenue and earned her the prestigious President Club Award 7 times. She is also the author of 2 inspiring books, A Return to Radiance and Harness Your Inner CEO, where she shares her journey of personal empowerment and leadership. As a certified kundalini yoga teacher and Reiki Master, Becca integrates her business acumen with holistic wellness practices, helping professionals achieve balance and success. Becca joins us today to discuss how we can harness our inner CEO and thrive both personally and professionally. Welcome, Becca.
Woo! Thank you for having me. I know I feel so pumped after that. I'm like, let's go.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're here, and I am going to dive right into the first question. So if you were to describe the evolution of your journey to this point with one word, what would that word be?
Resilience.
Resilience. Tell me more.
I say that because probably many women listening to this can relate, but life has knocked me down on more than one occasion. And I've had to learn resilience. And I think in many aspects, I've had to learn my inner resilience. I've had to learn my shadow side of resilience. When is my resilience harming me? When is my resilience serving me? Like big things around resilience.
Oh, I love that. Okay, you said something really interesting, your shadow side.
Yes.
Tell me more. Let's dive into that a little bit.
I would love to. So, one of the things that I have learned with strong characteristics that we have and values. So, I would say characteristics and values have their shadow side and have their light side. And if we're not aware, the shadow side can take us out. So, it's almost like how people say your strength can also be your greatest weakness. It's kind of like in that vein. So, I would say resilience is my word. But I will give you an example of what I mean by the shadow side. So, in my personal story, I worked myself into extreme burnout. I laugh now, but it was really painful. I stayed in a toxic work environment for 3 years. I was so resilient that every morning I woke up, I did my affirmations, I set my head on straight. I'm like, I got this. And yet every day I came home exhausted. And instead of honoring the red flags and honoring my body talk and all the different, aches and pains and clenching jaws and shoulder tensions, I was like resilienting my way through everything until I couldn't. And what happened to me specifically was that powering through nature had landed me on the bathroom floor. I emotionally collapsed one night. And from that came the birth of Harness Your Inner CEO, which was in my most powerless moment. I called out to God, universe, whatever word you want to put on it. Like, I can't do tomorrow the same way I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And I only know how to do tomorrow the same way I'm doing today. Like, I literally was on the bathroom floor and I'm like, I got to go to work tomorrow. So I don't know how I'm going to do this any different. And I kind of joke about it, but very seriously, I mean, I didn't even have the strength to stand up. And so when I did this call out, I call it my instant miracle, and it goes to the positive side of resilience. So it's going to answer kind of the shadow and the light side. I heard this like whisper from within, like, Becca, you're the CEO of your life. And all of a sudden, within the same 60 seconds, I go from being like the most powerless I think I ever have been in my entire life to feeling the most powerful. I get the goosebumps still to this day. I rose up the bathroom floor, a different woman than the one that went down. And then I had an appreciation for this word called resilience, because now I'm standing up over the obstacle with the fortitude to move forward. But now I know the difference of what's healthy and what's not.
I love that. Thank you so much for describing going from shadow to light. You also, in your bio, you had mentioned and called it potentially, maybe this is what you're referring to, the unpotential. And
Yes.
when you got to that place where you just hit that bottom.
Yeah, I used to use the word burnout a lot, and not that that's the wrong word, but for you ladies out there listening to this, burnout's a symptom of being in your unpotential. When you're disconnected from your radiance and the truth of who you are, you're really in your unpotential. And when you're in your unpotential, you will feel drained, you will feel exhausted, you will feel burnt out. And so those were some important learnings too. So I'm really glad you pulled that from my bio, because I had to start dissecting this thing that brought me down to the bathroom floor. And now I'm so excited to talk about it, because I want to help prevent other people from going to the bathroom floor. And then also the new book of Return to Radiance is like,
Yeah.
the evolution for me was, okay, I had this major empowerment piece, but then I had to heal, right? And that healing journey took 2 or 3 years. And because I had, prior to hitting the bathroom floor, I had done a lot of kundalini yoga work. I'm a certified teacher, so I went through that whole process. And I just want to give a little bit more detail, and I'll turn it back to you to see where you
Sure.
want to take it. But what I learned during the certification process was like all the meditations that we did, all the chanting, all the things had super intention to them. And that was on our potential and on our radiance. And then as I was healing, that's what I was focusing on. And I started thriving in May. 2 years, I made many miraculous shifts. I mean, I fully healed from autoimmune disease. So, ladies out there, I worked myself into autoimmune disease. My hair was falling out in clumps. I was a hot mess, right? So I healed, and it was really because I focused this energy on my radiance and on my potential rather than my sickness. And here's the difference is when I wrote Harness Your Inner CEO, started getting readership, and started getting feedback, they wanted me to share how to stay out of their trauma and how to stay out of burnout. So then I got certified in trauma awareness and shadow beliefs and limiting beliefs, which is why I
Mm-hmm.
started with the shadow. So it's super helpful to learn all those things so you can unravel.
Yeah.
However, they had me focusing as a practitioner on the stress and on the trauma. And as I was doing my own work for the certification process, I felt more stressed. I felt more of my trauma. And I was just like, my body started tensing. Everything I healed started feeling like it was coming back. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe we just need to return to our radiance. So
Mm.
that's like kind of the arc of my journey.
Oh my gosh. This is fantastic because I do have so many questions that I want to ask you, but this is a 25-minute podcast. So I want to, though, tap into a few things that you said
Yeah, let's
because you
go.
did fall down on that bathroom floor. You felt like you were a new woman coming back up. How did you not fall into those same patterns? How did you continue to move forward? Because I know that even when we have this epiphany or have this feeling or this energy where we're trying to return to radius, our brain, our behavior wants to return because these are old maps that we've
Yes.
created, old brain maps, right? So, how did Becca move forward with a new process, with a new feeling of radiance, emotionally, spiritually, physically,
Oh,
where you had that balance and were in alignment? Tell us about that. And we
you
will get
said one
into
of
your
my
book.
favorite words. As we talk, the book's just going to unfold, so it's fine.
Right.
But you said one of my favorite words, alignment. And what I realized is that when I hit that bathroom floor, I was completely out of alignment with myself. And, at that point, when I hit the bathroom floor, I was a senior leader. I had a team reporting to me. I had 4 kids in middle school. So, like, a lot of life required me to be present.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can barely take care of myself right now. So, you asked me how. I think it was out of necessity. I think a lot of us as women too, like we can be that boss woman. But what I mean by that is like we all kind of carry like, hey, I'm an independent woman. I got this. But when you have to put your oxygen on first, it's a different story. And I just knew I was like, I can't hit the bathroom floor again. So I just started paying attention to my energy. Like if I said yes to something, then my energy zap, or if I said no to something, did I get some back? And it was kind of like a game that I played. So like the very next day, for an example, very practical example, I got asked to lead a new project. And normally I would like the yes queen. So I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, I just fell to the bathroom floor last night. There is no freaking way that I can say yes. So how do I say no? So two, you're like, my heart's panicking. I'm telling my senior leadership. I'm like thinking in my head, am I going to get fired if I say no? Like,
Right.
or am I going to get written up or a conversation? Like, so my head's going crazy. And here's the funniest thing that happened. I ended up saying no, but I'm resourceful and I have team members around me. So I was like,
Yeah.
hey, there's this other lady who's a little more junior who's looking to get more project experience, more visibility. My plate's very full, but why don't we see if she'd be interested in it? And you know what the answer was? Sure, that sounds
Sure.
great. And we just moved on. And I'm like, how many times did I say yes to things that could have just been an easy breezy no?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
started playing like that yes no game. So that's a practical how I started.
Well, I appreciate you saying this and giving that example because I think a lot of us have been conditioned to say yes. And we stay in that zone of yes, 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 and lead to being on the floor in the bathroom because we're saying no to ourselves and forgetting to put on our own mask.
Yep.
Yet you did it. You made the transition. You stuck to that transition, which led to potentially this book, A Return to Radiance, the power method to ignite your soul and unleash your potential. I was going to ask you what was the impetus for this book, but we already know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, some of
like,
this is just naturally
like,
unfolding.
just tell us more. Give us a glimpse of this book and what it has to offer folks.
Coming off the last example of how I started paying attention to my energy. And then I also shared earlier how I knew there was a difference of meditating and focusing on my stress and trauma, and then what
Mm-hmm.
it felt like when I was focusing on my radiance and my potential.
Mm-hmm.
And so before I started writing the book, maybe about a year and a half before I wrote the book, and why I was like, this has to get out in the world. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going back to this radiance thing. I'm going to experiment all over again and see what happens.
Yeah.
And in that, like my life started falling back into alignment, like little health issues that still needed to get cleaned up, got cleaned up. I've tested negative for autoimmune disease after being positive for 6+ years. Gone. Like, I mean, I still have flare ups and stuff, but like gone. And I'm like, I healed that holistically. There's so many other examples. I mean, I did like quadruple my income and just a whole bunch of other things. But really, the work was like focusing on my light and my strengths and talents and gifts that I had to give to the world, and not so much about what I had to do, but who I was.
Mm. And I think by doing that, you drew in a different type of energy and also folks that were attracted to that energy. And it's funny, you had mentioned that they wanted you to talk about stress and trauma. But sometimes, even as a clinician, as a doctor of clinical psychology, sometimes I have to wonder when we talked about that over and over, are we re traumatizing?
Yes.
And so here you are becoming aware of, hey, let's change this whole mindset, the process, the focus to radiance and returning to that versus how do we get out of trauma? How do we work our way out of that? Because it almost keeps you there. And it
Yes.
feels so different when you talk about radiance. It's a different energy.
Oof, way different. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, it's not spiritual bypassing, because that happens
Yeah.
too, or turning your cheek, even if you're not spiritual bypassing, right? When you're focusing on your potential and your radiance, your energy lifts. And so that means your stress lifts off. So the outcomes you're seeking happen as a result of, but you don't need to hyper focus it. Like my trauma, when I would meditate on my radiance, some of the stuff would come up, and actually not some, a lot. And I would come out of my meditations with tears coming down my face. But that means what? It's releasing, but
Hmm.
it's releasing in a way that lightens my spirit, that brings me more in alignment with my truth, my passions, my purpose, my
Hmm.
prosperity. Because hey, listen, ladies, I'll tell you what, when you're in alignment, prosperity, like I've been chasing prosperity for a long time. I'm a salesperson. And when I got into alignment and stopped making that like my driver,
Yeah.
I got more of it.
Right. And again, because you are emitting that radiance, because you're putting that authentic feeling out into the world, and it's not overwhelmed by trauma. It's not that you're not working on that. It's just coming from it at a different approach and healing as it's exuding from you of sorts,
Yes.
right? That it's attracting a different energy. It's healing you from inside too. It's not just, okay, what are the steps? What are the strategies? It's a feeling, it's equilibrium, it's
Yes.
balance. And so what I want to do is ask you about the power method and the 5 pillars. If you could just briefly touch on that as well.
Yes. So one is protect your potential. And that's where I do get into the body of work. Like I start talking about trauma and our central nervous system and our vagus nerve so that people know how to leverage it to go up. So protect your potential is one. 2 is own your opportunities. This is very mindset heavy, like kind of coming out of victim to victor. If I was to use like an arc, W, awaken your worthiness is not just about being worthy. It's about tapping into that infinite reserve. Like we were born inherently worthy. And so it is about self-worth, but it is so much bigger than that. It's tapping into the belief that we already are. How do we align with who we already are? And it's kind of collecting all these pieces of us and bringing it back. The E is elevate your energy. So this is where I would say the work is like how to use your breath, how to use your movement, meditation, mantra to kind of create that energy shift within so you can get into alignment. And then the R is rock your radiance.
I love it. I love it. That is so cool. First of all, I love acronyms. And
I
they
do
can
too.
be really powerful. And it's a great way of remembering and tapping back into, oh, I need more R. I need more, E
Yeah.
today. I need, or like I want, or I just need to really align my energy today in a different way. And it's a great way to tap into how do I remember this and what are the practical steps that I can continue to take. And then you're creating a brain map
Yes.
and that energy flow. So we have covered so much, and this has been an amazing conversation. I know that we together, we could go on and on because there are so many questions I have written here,
Yeah,
but
1000%.
so we might have to have a 2-parter here at some point, right? But as we come to the close of the interview, my last question is, if you were to give the listeners one practical tip to help support the development of their radiance or return to radiance, what would that be?
Make choices that don't suck. I joke. But on that vein, give yourself permission to choose choices that serve you because choice has 2 paths. They are either going to serve us or they're going to sabotage us. And that was a huge lesson I've had to learn the hard way multiple times. So that's always one of my favorite things to share is choice.
Thank you so much, Becca, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Absolutely. You can follow Becca Powers on LinkedIn at Becca Powers Vaughn, on Instagram and Facebook at Becca Powers 1313 and at BeccaPowers.com. You can also find her books on Amazon.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.